So here's your new top 10 when we take a look at the switch with the Panthers and the Bears. Now the Bears slide at 9, the Panthers sitting at 1. You got the Texans also looking for a quarterback and the Colts. So we will see how this plays out. Once again, the Panthers moving up from number 9 and the Bears staying in the top 10 now with the 9th pick overall. Let's bring in our analyst, Damien Woody, who's won 2 Super Bowls. Damien, what is your reaction to this trade?
Boy, you talk about a win-win for both sides here. You talk about the Carolina Panthers. You know, we had all the chatter, all the noise. You know, why would the Panthers not, try to look into trading for Lamar Jackson? Where here we go. They traded with the Chicago Bears to get to the number 1 spot, to get the quarterback of their liking in the college draft, and then obviously for the Bears to get this type of haul from the Carolina Panthers, and Adam Schefter pointed it out, and getting DJ Moore, legitimate number 1 receiver, that is going to do wonders for Justin Fields because DJ Moore is a dynamic receiver that he's going to have at his disposal now.
You saw, of course, Schefter brought up how the Eagles made a trade in the offseason right at the draft for A.J. Brown to change Jalen Hurts. Now you see Justin Fields getting a potential number 1, like you mentioned, as they've been waiting for DJ Moore to have a breakout. Let's talk about specifically this number 1 pick, because you have Bryce Young there at 5'10 and a half, and then you have C.J. Stroud at 6'3". You have Frank Reich leaning right now on Stroud, according to Schefter. You have the owner, David Tepper, leaning on Bryce Young. Who would you pick at number 1 here if you're the Panthers?
Man, it's just so close and so much more work that needs to be done. I tend to lean slightly towards C.J. Stroud, a little bit bigger quarterback. He has such a smooth, just his smoothness about his passing was evident at the combine. Played in a great offense out there at Ohio State. I love the fact that he showed off his mobility in the college football playoff against the University of Georgia. That was an aspect of his game that we didn't really see a lot of at Ohio State. So I think he's helped himself post-collegiate career. But let me tell you something, Bryce Young is special. Special. He's a special player in the people liking him to a smaller Patrick Mahomes. So Kevin, there's just a lot of work that needs to be done, and fortunately for the Carolina Panthers, they don't have to make that decision today.
We welcome in our ESPN draft analyst, Matt Miller, for much more on this. What can you tell us about who they're targeting with that top pick?
Yeah, I would say all the buzz around the NFL today is that the Carolina Panthers can now control their destiny, but C.J. Stroud from Ohio State was the player who was connected to them even back a week ago when we were at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. All the talk was C.J. Stroud's workout, which was flawless. It's one of the best throwing workouts I've ever seen at the Combine. Really caught the eye of Frank Reich, really caught the eye of a quarterback staff in Carolina that's phenomenal. When you think about Jim Caldwell, Josh McCown being there, I think C.J. Stroud is probably the favorite right now, at least around the league in terms of people I've talked to, that he would be the number 1 pick in this draft over Bryce Young from Alabama and over Anthony Richardson from Florida. Remember, Bryce Young came in at 5'10 and some change, got up to 204 pounds. He didn't throw at the Combine. Now there's some conversation at least that the C.J. Stroud could have leapfrogged him in the draft order and impressed a team like Carolina to go up from number 9 to number 1. And now they do have about 45 days to really evaluate this quarterback class, make sure they get the right guy for the ownership, for the coaching staff, and for the rest of the weapons they have there.
Again, we just heard Schefter say there's a little difference in opinion inside the Panthers front office on who they should be targeting, but as you mentioned, plenty of time to parse through that. As for the Bears, they get this huge load and also still a top 10 pick this year. What should they be who should they be targeting rather with that 9th overall pick?
Yeah, they're definitely going to have options. I think the conversation starts with Jalen Carter from Georgia, who a week ago was projected to maybe be the number 1 overall pick. Now, we know he was arrested in connection to those 2 misdemeanor charges in Georgia. We have to see how that plays out. NFL teams are definitely doing their research right now. Could Jalen Carter fall to number 9 overall? I don't think that's out of the question as of right now. So he's definitely still in the mix. If they're not comfortable, then I think you pivot to someone like Texas Tech pass rusher Tyree Wilson, who had a phenomenal year for Texas Tech, incredibly productive. We saw the wingspan at the Combine, which is like an NBA power forward. So they need pass rush help in Chicago. Tyree Wilson is just a shade under Alabama's Will Anderson as the top pass rusher in this class. He could play as a 4-3 defensive end. You see the length, the power, the burst. He dominated Big 12 offensive lines this past year, and he's great against the run. So with what they want to do, Matt Eberflus, Chicago's head coach, he wants to run a 4-3 defense. Tyree Wilson is perfect for that.
So with about 7 weeks to go, the first domino has fallen in terms of the draft. Give me some other teams that are sort of near the top of the draft that could be looking to move down.
Absolutely. The Carolina Panthers made the big move today. Now it's the Arizona Cardinals, the owners of the number 3 overall pick. Their phone line has to be burning up right now because they're the next hot spot, a team that doesn't need a quarterback because they have Kyler Murray. So I think we'll see teams like the Indianapolis Colts perhaps try to come up one spot to secure a quarterback. You have to keep an eye on the Seattle Seahawks, even though they signed Geno Smith. The Las Vegas Raiders, the Atlanta Falcons. There are quite a few teams just in the top 10 that have a need at quarterback, or at least a potential need. I think Arizona is that team that now will start to try to sell that pick and move out of that number 3 spot and perhaps pick up a draft haul like the Bears did today.
I was going to say, they're like, ooh, just how desperate are you? Let's go. Matt Miller joining us here to run down the blockbuster trade with the Bears and the Panthers. As you now take a look, this is the 7th instance since 1990 of a team that's trading up for the number 1 overall pick, and first since 2016. The Rams did that so they could take Jared Goff.
Adam Schefter now joining us. You broke the story, Schefter. What more can you tell us about why the Panthers pulled the trigger to make this move up to number 1?
Well, Kevin, let's give you a little bit of the backstory. These talks have been going on and have intensified since the Combine. The Bears were in position to make this deal, and they had multiple suitors for the number 1 overall pick. Houston was interested in moving up 1 slot. Carolina was interested. Other teams checked in with Chicago. And ultimately, Carolina felt like this was the right compensation package. The Panthers believe they have 48 days, and they've got the right coaches in the building right now. Frank Reich, Josh McCown, others, their general manager Scott Fitterer, to assess this quarterback class and to make a decision. Just hung up the phone with someone in the organization, and I said, there's a belief that David Tepper loves Bryce Young, Frank Reich likes C.J. Stroud, and they said, we love all these quarterbacks, and we've got 48 days to make a decision on which one we will be taking. But clearly they felt comfortable in giving up the compensation that they did to move up 8 slots in the draft to procure the number 1 overall draft pick ahead of the other teams that were interested in getting that particular pick. And for the Chicago Bears, they go back 8 slots and come away with 2 1s, 2 2s, and a new number 1 wide receiver in Chicago, DJ Moore. So both sides really seem to get what they wanted here out of this particular trade.
So they got 48 days. You mentioned the owner siding with 1 quarterback and the head coach, the new head coach, siding with another quarterback. How does this affect the teams that are behind them at number 2, the Texans, and moving forward, all the other teams, as we take a look at this draft where it features 4 quarterbacks that could go in the top 10?
Well, the funny part about that is there's one team already behind them that's texted, who are the Panthers taking? Because they want to figure out what they need to do to be in position. So everybody right now has and is seeing the draft shakeup, Kevin, and everybody's trying to figure out exactly what Carolina do. Look, I think the pick will boil down to either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. If you look at Frank Reich's history, and you know well, he has preferred bigger quarterbacks. That would be the C.J. Stroud model. There are people who believe that Bryce Young should be the number 1 overall pick, that he's a mini Patrick Mahomes. Well, we'll see if that is the direction they go. But clearly at this point in time, it seems to be a decision between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, both in play for the number 1 overall pick. And as that one Panthers official just said to me, we've got 48 days to go through this. I go back to what the 49ers did when they traded up for Trey Lance. And I still maintain and believe that when they made the trade, the idea was that Mac Jones was the guy that they were leaning towards taking. But they had all that extra time to evaluate the quarterbacks and go through the process. And ultimately, they settled in on Trey Lance. So the Panthers may have an idea and a lean today, but they have almost 7 full weeks to go through their process and make a final decision about what to do. But there's no doubt that they were comfortable going up to number 1. Plus, if we're going to draw analogies here, the Chicago Bears are a little bit like the Philadelphia Eagles last year when the Eagles added an extra first-round draft pick from the New Orleans Saints. They liked Jalen Hurts and believed in Jalen Hurts, but they had the ammunition built up for the future in the event that Jalen Hurts didn't play the way that they wanted this past year. Well, Jalen Hurts turned into an MVP candidate. The Eagles don't need to draft a quarterback, and they had the extra ones to fortify their roster. Well, the Bears are now in a similar position. They really like Justin Fields. They believe in Justin Fields, but they want Justin Fields to take that next step the way that Jalen Hurts did this past year in Philadelphia. And if Justin Fields does that, then the Bears have these extra picks to surround him with more and more talent. And if they don't, then they'd be in a position to move up and get a quarterback in the 2024 draft.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.